United Nations warns that 6 million Yemeni women are in need for protection. Houthi recent offensive in Ma'rib causes new waves of displacement. World Food Programme indicates that Yemeni rial collapse increases poverty and spreads famine. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. A recent UN report revealed that more than 6 million Yemeni women are in dire need for protection. The United Nations for Humanitarian Affairs stated that 7 years of conflict have increased vulnerability of women and girls to violence and abuse. The Yemeni Teachers Syndicate stated that the siege imposed by the Houthi militia on Abdiyah has stopped 18 schools from functioning. The syndicate called on the international community to intervene and save Al-Abdiyah, provide support to teachers and all the people of Abdiyah in general. The recent Houthi offensive in Ma'rib has forced thousands of civilians to move to neighboring areas to seek shelter. More on the story is in the following report.
Houthi militia recent escalation in Ma'rib raised the rate of internal displacement to its highest levels this year. Relief organizations managed to reach 10,000 displaced people in 7 directorates out of 14. Total number of displaced people since the beginning of this year exceeded 60,000 in various regions of the country. Warnings of a harsh winter, as 2/3 of the population are unable to purchase needs from local markets. The International Organization for Migration stated that the escalation of hostilities in and around Ma'rib forced thousands of people to flee in search of safety, with an alarming increase since the beginning of last month. The organization's displacement tracking matrix recorded the displacement of nearly 10,000 people, and this is the highest displacement rate monitored in Ma'rib during 1 month this year. This renewed violence in Ma'rib destabilizes the lives of thousands of people and leads to tragic deaths and injuries among civilians, including children, said Krista Rothensteiner, head of the International Organization for Migration mission in Yemen. The organization confirmed that the attack launched by Houthis on Abdiyah, south of Ma'rib, impeded movement of people and the entry of basic supplies, which made humanitarian organizations concerned about the safety of conflict-affected communities in areas where aid cannot be reached. International Migration described the situation in Harib, Al-Juba and Rahaba as terrible. The majority of them sought refuge in safer areas. Fighting in parts of Shabwa also caused the displacement of hundreds within Adala and north to Ma'rib. Rothensteiner said many newly displaced people live in deplorable conditions, with multiple families sheltering under one roof. More than half of them said that shelter is their most important need, followed by food and water, where a family of 22 people lives on one tent. They hardly find food, she added. International Organization for Migration and its partners estimated that nearly 170,000 people have been displaced to Ma'rib several times, while a third of them have fled since the beginning of this year. Many are living in 34 displacement sites managed by the International Organization for Migration. Camps are overcrowded and others tend to search for safe haven in abandoned public buildings or relatives' homes, and some have exhausted their savings in rental housing. Also, among those affected by the conflict are 4,000 African migrants stranded in the Governorate. They became more vulnerable to exploitation and abuse, with migrants often unable to continue their journey. Most struggle to find jobs, food, basic health care, or other services. Meanwhile, the United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs stated that many families are unable to prepare for winter. In addition, the alarming economic collapse has made household items and shelter materials unaffordable for Yemenis in local markets. During winter, temperatures can drop dramatically. Many displaced families with at least 10 members live under one tent. Winter is approaching, while Houthis continue their offensive against Yemenis. International organizations warn from an upcoming human crisis. One may wonder what the fate is hiding to poor Yemenis.
Still in Ma'rib, government forces defended Houthi attacks and caused heavy losses among the rebels. Military sources said that Houthi militia launched attacks in Al-Abdiyah and Harib fronts. Further Houthi attacks were thwarted after suffering heavy losses. Turning to Hodeidah, joint forces responded to Houthi militia fire sources on two fronts. A military source said that joint forces monitored Houthi shelling that targeted residential areas in El Jah and Kilo 16 areas. The source said that joint forces inflicted losses in personnel and equipment among the rebels. The Minister of Information said that Houthi militia is using drugs to finance its absurd war and to attract young people. He pointed out that the militia's controlled areas are teeming with hundreds of drug trafficking networks under the auspices of Houthi leaders, who use them to finance their war and drag thousands of youth to the battlefields. Houthi militia created new security checkpoints as to disturb travelers and loot their money. Activists said that new restrictions were imposed on travelers in Houthi-controlled areas. The militia chases citizens to loot their property and look for new banknotes and loot them on the grounds, as carrying new banknotes is a violation. In Ib, Houthi militia has imposed new financial ransoms targeting all people, including school and children. Local sources said that Houthi militia imposed financial ransoms on government school students to support the activities of the Prophet's birthday. Sources confirmed that Houthis took money from private sector merchants and students of some schools. The continuous collapse of the national currency in Yemen leads to doubling the prices in the country. The Yemeni rial keeps dropping, which caused poverty and famine between the Yemeni people. More on the story is in the following report.
The United Nations warned that the continued collapse of the local currency in Yemen has led to a hunger crisis and doubled the prices of food commodities. The collapse of the Yemeni rial and the rise in prices are worsening hunger in Yemen. The United Nations humanitarian coordinator in Yemen said in a report that food prices have risen by about 60% in some parts of Yemen since the beginning of this year, driven by the collapse of the Yemeni rial, which reached more than 1,200 to $1. The drop of the rial makes it very difficult for the general public to provide basic food, especially in light of the ongoing market chaos during the conflict that has extended for more than 7 years and the displacement of about 4 million people and the impact of corona. In the southern regions, insufficient food consumption has now exceeded 45%. The United Nations say the famine in Yemen is largely income-related and not necessarily a situation where there is no food. The internationally recognized government has run the Central Bank of Yemen from Aden since 2016, after it accused the rebels of using the bank's money to finance themselves, which the Houthi denied. The transfer of the operations of the central bank to Aden led to the presence of the two financial centers dealing with the same currency, the first in the southern city and the second in Sana'a. The reasons for the collapse have political, security, and economic dimensions due to the ongoing battles between the Houthi rebels and the internationally recognized government in several regions in Yemen. The conflict over power has caused the deaths of tens of thousands, including a large number of civilians, according to humanitarian organizations. Eventually, Yemenis die for all the reasons possible, dying out of hunger or killed by Houthi. No mercy is left at all.
Coming next. Houthi rebels inject school curriculum with their poisonous ideology.
أقول لك راحت بالغداء لأهلها شلت الغداء وراحت بالأهلها في المزرعة، والمزرعة ركبت على حمار ما حتى نص المزرعة وانفجر فيها اللغم، دعست على اللغم وانفجر فيهم. الحمار انتهى الماء ترى تبقعت رجليها كامل. نغير منها نغير الشبعلة اللي هي البيت سابها من دور رجليها، لما صافناها طبية أقرب طبية وصافناها لا هي بطلت رجليها كامل.
قلت أزود هلي وقابل لي لعام وطبعته تحت الزواية.
Welcome back. In a new violation against state employees, Houthi militia seeks to replace employees with loyalists. Documents addressed to governors and local authority officials asked for lists of employees that oppose the militia and replace them with their loyalists. Since they seized the capital Sana'a, Houthi rebels have been depleting all aspects of life. Their aggression has reached climax when they started injecting the school curriculum with their poisonous sectarian ideology. This report has more on this story.
The school book presses in Sana'a received new copies of textbooks that differ from the previous curricula after the Houthi militia added some modifications and poisoned them with racist ideas to be printed instead of the basic educational curricula. Teachers in the area controlled by the Iran-backed militia have warned the students' families of these poisonous curricula that are waiting for their children in schools with the beginning of the new school year. Educational sources confirmed that the Houthi militia stopped the curricula of the basic educational stage with ideas and beliefs imported from Tehran, which threatened to blow the minds of young students. Yemeni law rejected these abuses and imposes punishment for exploiting or violating a public function, but the Houthi militia has become the one who allows for these abuses to blow the minds of Yemeni students. The Houthi militia had made disastrous alterations to the school curricula, especially for primary school students, in an effort to form an extremist generation that owes absolute loyalty to them. On the 19th of August, the UNICEF Children Organization warned the Houthi militia against subjecting education to political or sectarian use, and assured that they will not have any connection with the printing of the new sectarian curriculum.
A recent UNICEF report has indicated that more than 3 million Yemeni children are out of schools due to the ongoing war. Many schools have been damaged, others have been turned into military barracks. The following report sheds more light on this story.
6 years on, Yemeni children's education has become one of the greatest casualties of Yemen's devastating and ongoing conflict. According to a new report published by UNICEF today, over 2 million school-age girls and boys are now out of school as poverty, conflict, and lack of opportunities disrupt their education. This is double the number of out-of-school children in 2015 when the conflict started. Also, access to quality education is a basic right for every child, including girls, displaced children, and those with disabilities. Sir Philip Duhamel, UNICEF representative to Yemen, said that the conflict has a staggering impact on every aspect of children's lives. Yet, access to education provides a sense of normalcy for children in even the most desperate contexts and protects them from multiple forms of exploitation. Keeping children in school is critical for their own future and the future of Yemen. The report highlights that when children are not in school, the consequences are dire for both their present and their future. Girls are being forced into early marriage, where they remain trapped in a cycle of poverty and unfulfilled potential. Boys and girls are more vulnerable to being coerced into child labor or recruited into the fighting. More than 3,600 children in Yemen were recruited by Houthi militia in the past 6 years. To make matters worse, 2/3 of teachers in Yemen, over 170,000 teachers in total, haven't received a regular salary for more than 4 years because of the conflict and the geopolitical divides. This puts around 4 million additional children at risk of disrupted education or dropping out as unpaid teachers quit teaching to find other ways of providing for their families. Children who do not finish their education are trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle of poverty. If out-of-school children or those who have dropped out recently are not properly supported, they may never return to school. The combined effects of the prolonged conflict and the latest assault on education by Houthi rebels and COVID-19 pandemic will have devastating and long-lasting effects on the learning, as well as the mental and the physical well-being of children and adolescents in Yemen. In the report, UNICEF calls for all stakeholders in Yemen to uphold children's right to education and work together to achieve lasting and inclusive peace. This includes stopping attacks on schools, ensuring teachers get a regular income so that children can continue to learn and grow, and for international donors to support education programs with long-term funding.
Number of cities witnessed heavy rains accompanied by winds as part of the possible effects of Shaheen cyclone, which is hitting the region. Heavy rains fell on Aden, Abyan, Shabwa and Taiz for the second day, while heavy rain fell on the capital Sana'a. The Meteorological Center continues to warn from heavy rains and thunderstorms in the country. In Mukalla, torrential rains caused great damage to the infrastructure. On Thursday, heavy and medium rains fell on Mukalla for the second day. Torrential rains flooded the city's streets, washed away cars and caused road cuts and power outages. The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 12 new cases of the COVID-19 in 4 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 8 cases were recorded in Hadramaut, 2 in Taiz, 1 in Aden and 1 in El Dola. Also 2 deaths were recorded plus 9 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,345, including 1,775 deaths and 5,910 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. United Nations warns that 6 million Yemeni women are in need for protection. Houthi recent offensive in Ma'rib causes new waves of displacement. World Food Programme indicates that Yemeni Riyal collapse increases poverty and spreads famine. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.